Were you surprised that Jerry's sticking with Mike McCarthy?
No, I'm really not surprised. I don't think it's the best decision. I don't think it's the wisest decision. I think it's the wrong decision, to be quite honest with you. But I'm thankful. I'm grateful because it essentially ensures that the Dallas Cowboys will not be winning anytime for the foreseeable future. Thank you very, very much. I mean, listen, I'm sitting up there and thinking about what we do on this show and what have you. Listen, the Dallas Cowboys, for me, are the gift that keeps on giving. They just don't let me down. And yet again, yesterday, I gave that look because it was basically what I just retweeted something that I had tweeted Sunday. And I just retweeted it again yesterday, okay? And I'm just laughing my behind off because I'm like, you just can't make this stuff up. They will not learn. And let me tell you something right now. To all the aspiring coaches out there, you too should want to be the head coach for the Dallas Cowboys under Jerry Jones. Because you see, if you work out in the regular season and you're decent, and you get into the postseason, and you never, ever, ever even have to think about a Super Bowl championship because 13 straight trips to the postseason without a trip to the conference championship is what the resume shows. And yet you have the unwavering support of the billionaire owner of the most popular franchise in all of sports, worth over $9 billion. And all you have to do is get to the playoffs. Can you ask for much more than that? Talk about job security. Just think about that for a second here. You got about 13 or 15 Pro Bowlers, whatever number you said it 15. Was, Dan Orlovsky. About 15 Pro Bowlers, right? You got about 15 Pro Bowlers. You get 12 win seasons, all right? You get bounced out. You understand what I'm saying? Before you got a chance to pass gas, but you keep your job. You keep your job. We're going to hold on to you. We value you because we're all accountable. We're all accountable, right? Jerry Jones is just weeks removed from acknowledging that when you look at us, there is no question we have Super Bowl aspirations. We believe in this team. We've got faith in this team, et cetera, et cetera. And what do? It doesn't matter. And then I'm looking at certain things because I think it's important to point this stuff out. This is the Mike McCarthy he's keeping. The Mike McCarthy that coached the Dallas Cowboys in 2021, led the NFL with 127 penalties and had the second most penalty yards. Fast forward 2 years later, you got 115 total penalties, but you led the league in penalty yards. I didn't bring up clock management. I said penalties. Penalties is one thing. Clock management's another. Then you go out and you give up 48 points. You're down 48-16 with 6 minutes left in the game. In a game that you were favored considerably, by the way, to win in this wildcard playoff round. And you walk away from that with a 6-time champion like Bill Belichick out there on the market, along with a guy like Jim Harbaugh, and you deduce that we're in a great situation. Why? Because evidently Super Bowl championships are not the priority. Let me fool everybody into being competitive enough to tease the American public to say, hey, we too shall return. We got a chance. And then we're sitting here and it's not even week 2 of the postseason and you're already home. This is who they are. I just want to give a special thanks to Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys because needless to say, I get to sit back for at least another 364 days and say, be patient, just wait. They won't let you down. And sure enough, this is what they've ensured. Yet again, we'll be back here next year with me saying the same thing to you, to the Cowboy fans out there. Howdy. How do you do?
Steven.
Can I give you a business? You should make a T-shirt that says, be patient, just wait, they'll let you down. You should make those T-shirts.
We won't let you down. Just be patient.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, fellas.
So I think this is I'm not surprised. Pause. I was surprised when Schefter broke the news initially. But the more I thought about it, I said, this is very much in line with how Jerry Jones conducts business. The question about whether this is a mistake or not, we will see. But I think for me personally looking at this, if I'm a Cowboys fan looking at this, I think it's a mistake for 2 reasons. One of the reasons is if Jerry Jones didn't even attempt to see if Bill Belichick through back channels was interested, I think if you're a Cowboys fan, you have to feel like that's a mistake because you have a coach, the greatest of all time, who is available. This is a wild offseason where you have Bill Belichick available. And if Jerry Jones didn't even attempt to figure out if this man who's won all these Super Bowls could come and literally take my team to the promised land, I think if you're a Cowboys fan, you have to feel like that's a mistake. Number two, if you're a Cowboys fan, I have to think you would think this is a mistake if Jerry Jones simply made this decision because he didn't want to go through the process of another regime change. And that's something, Stephen A., as you know, Troy Aikman had said to you on your own show, this is Stephen A. Smith show, he said that. And when Troy Aikman said that, my ears perked up because I said, that is not a good enough reason. I understand his age, but for me, when I think about relationships, when I think about marriages, because Jerry Jones and Mike McCarthy, they're in a marriage. When I think about the future, when you think about marriages, you have to think about, am I happy? Is this going in the direction that I think it needs to? And if you have any doubt in your mind, but you say, you know what? It's not so bad. It's not great. I'm not really happy, but it's okay. What I know now is better than what I don't know out there. That to me is a failure. So if I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm disappointed if those two things happen. If Jerry Jones feels like Mike McCarthy, I believe everything he said. This man, the reason I hired him is the reason I still believe in him. If Mike McCarthy sat in that meeting and said, look, first year of me running the offense, what did Dak do? He had his best season, granted, in the regular season, but it was an MVP type season up until the very end of the season. If Jerry Jones firmly 100% believes that, God bless him. Because I would love for somebody to love me that much and have that much faith in my ability. I hope for his sake he is right about this because this team is too talented right now to do more of what it has been doing.
Listen, I need McCarthy and I need his loved ones, his family members, and everybody that's watching, recognizing what this business, this is what he does, this is his career, what it means to him, to understand that no one is saying that he's not a good coach. The man has won 61% of his games in 17 years as a head coach. He's a Super Bowl champion 14 years ago. He's been to 4 conference championship games in his career. We know that there is a resume there. But what everybody needs to understand is that in those 17 years, Brett Favre, the first 2 years, Aaron Rodgers, the next 11 years, and Dallas, the last 4 years, your quarterbacks were Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, 2 Hall of Famers, and Dak Prescott, who's a league MVP candidate this year and is considered a damn good quarterback. And you have 1 Super Bowl to show for all of that over 17 years. At some point in time, folks do have a right to look at you and to question whether or not there's a better option. And so when I saw him saying what he was saying, it's like, yeah, we lost, yeah, it's hurtful, but you know, this is what I do and you get back to work, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the problem was y'all didn't show up to work Sunday. That's the problem. Your job, when there are ways to lose. Losses happen. Dan Orlovsky, you watch the game, you cover the game. Mina Kimes, you know the game, you cover the game, okay? Both of you are exceptional. I'm not making this up. This is not a loss. You looked ill-prepared. You looked off. There are, and I've said this when I was interviewing Troy Aikman, and I'll say it again, the camera shots had to be zoomed out on more than one occasion to see a Dallas defender in the vicinity of wide open receivers for the Green Bay Packers. So you didn't do your job. It's not, you can do your job and lose. You can do a haphazard job at times and win. But when you lose and it is clear that you were ill-prepared, and then you got a 6-time champion out there that's on a coaching market, and just a couple of days after losing, Jerry Jones says, hey, we're going to stick with the plan, and we're perfectly fine. Yeah. It's a problem. It's a problem.
Yeah, I would have moved on from Mike McCarthy. I was surprised that Dallas didn't. I don't think it was a glaring mistake given what he has accomplished with this team, but I do think it would have been the right decision, not just because of the playoff record. I've seen it pointed out, well, other great coaches didn't have success into the playoffs until they did. And I think with playoffs, because it's such a small sample size, often you can explain losses, fluky things happen, interceptions, whatnot. No, for me, it's the way they've lost, to Stephen A's point, not just this year, but last year. Last year was about game management, clock management, ultimately fell at Mike McCarthy's feet. And this year, Dan and I were just in Tampa reacting to this loss, and we were stunned by what we saw from Dallas because there were so many errors in coaching. Defensively, major problems, game planning for Green Bay and reacting to what Matt LaFleur did. Offensively, Dak Prescott didn't play well. I don't want to make it seem like we're exonerating him at all. But, Dan, the contrast between what we saw from Dallas's offense, which is under Mike McCarthy's purview, and Green Bay, where you had a essentially rookie quarterback being put time and time again into a position to succeed, throwing to wide open receivers, scheme helping him out. Dallas had by far the easier matchup going against a Packers defense that we saw get absolutely run through during the regular season, and there was nothing. I mean, again, Prescott made mistakes. I don't want to ignore that. But offensively, there was no creativity, there was no help. And I think when you're coming on 2 years in a row where we can blame these playoff losses or put a lot of the share of the blame at the feet of coaching, if the ultimate goal of this team is to go deep into the playoffs, it seems to me to be a mistake to stick with him.
Yeah, I completely agree, MK. You know that. And I think in relation to the Dak and Mike McCarthy situation, the concern is you're coming off of that combination being the best season that quarterback has had.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in football this season. And so you take that in the regular season, and then it goes into the postseason, and it's a complete 180 dud. The player just didn't fall off the tracks. That's my concern with it. Listen, we all, in many ways, like Stephen A., as much of a troll as you are with the Cowboys, you do root for Mike McCarthy as a human being, right? You root for Dak Prescott to do well. They're great people. Listening to the press conference, I still am left with some questions because Mike McCarthy, again, I'm not attacking anything, but he said I had some really productive conversations with Jerry Jones over those 3 hours. And then I believe it was Todd Archer who asked, well, what needs to change? And he responded back with, I don't know just yet. I'm still raw and numb. But then how did we have productive conversations? Now, maybe it's a press conference response and he's not giving anything to the media, but I would like something in that moment. And then someone asked him, hey, Sunday, go back to it. And his response was, we just didn't play to our standard. And I would love to know why. That's the crux of this. They didn't lose on a game-winning field goal. They didn't lose on a one-score game. In his words, they did not play to their standard in a year where their expectations were higher than they've been. And realistically, their expectations were higher than they've been. So why did you not play in the biggest game of the year versus the team that is the youngest team in the NFL, not to your standards? That falls on coaching again. Coming out of that press conference, those are 2 still giant question marks that we don't have answers to.